Hello, everybody. The subject of the lesson today is on spiritual freedom. You might wonder what that is versus our regular human freedoms that we have that can be given to us or taken away from us. Spiritual freedom is something that nobody can give us. Nobody can take it away. It is a divine inheritance because it involves the right to utilize our spiritual attributes. Oftentimes, our spiritual freedom gets lost. When it comes to self-esteem, we lose track of the truth, and we have feelings of inferiority, or we have feelings of unworthiness. Sometimes we lack confidence, and we're afraid to move out of the difficult situations that we're in order to move forward and have an improved life. There's relationship issues where ego takes offense at something that somebody said or somebody did, and conflict arises, and that creates a lot of disharmony in our lives. So this morning I've selected some people, a panel per se, to talk about their own view of personal or spiritual freedom. And I'd like to bring them up now. And Ace Wagner is over here, Linda McClellan's over there, Reverend Bruce Kellogg, and Whitney Souse. You'd all come forward. This is Whitney Souse. She is a personal coach. She's our millennial, not a token millennial because she has a great deal of brilliance to her when it comes to her spiritual insights. This is Reverend Bruce Kellogg. Bruce has recently moved back here from Canada, and he is an outstanding unity minister, and he's here to provide spiritual counseling for those of you who might be interested or anything else you might need from a minister. Linda McClellan is our chaplain, and she's a familiar face around here, so we welcome her. And Ace Wagner is also a coach for personal business entrepreneurship, and he's also the facilitator of the Course in Miracles group here. So we're talking about spiritual freedom. And Ace, I believe we'll start with, no, I think I'll start with Whitney. We'll let you get this over. She told me she was quite nervous about this whole thing. She never spoke to a crowd this big before. So let's hear what she has to say.
Thank you, Duke. First, I just want to say what a complete honor it is to be sitting up here with such an amazing panel, and I'm honored that Duke trusted me to speak on spiritual freedom. And when he first asked me, I immediately said yes, I'd be honored to do that, and then I kind of frantically was wondering what in the world I was going to say to you guys. So growing up, I had a father that was a Jehovah's Witness, and I had a mother that was Christian, and so spirituality was kind of itchy for me. I wasn't really sure where that all fit in, and I went through 24 years of suffering, deep suffering, and I was searching for something. I knew that I needed something. And I remembered when I was in basic training for the Army, I had gone to a Buddhist temple to kind of get away from cleaning the barracks on Sundays. So that was always a little more peaceful. And I remembered really enjoying that. And so when I found myself suffering and dealing with addiction and depression, I Googled Buddhism in Kansas City, and I found Temple Buddhist Center, and it was next door, and that's where I kind of started turning my life around. I had a spiritual community now. I had a room full of people that remembered my name, and they cared about me enough for me to want to give up the addiction and the numbing. And the numbing was everything. It was TV, it was relationships, it was Facebook, it was alcohol. And I started setting boundaries. I started setting boundaries not only for other people, but for myself. And so when you're in a deep state of depression, setting boundaries for yourself might look like brushing your teeth twice a day or getting out of bed. And so that's where I started. And I started setting goals and aspirations, and I started honoring those commitments to myself. And what happened when I started honoring those commitments to myself is I really developed a sense of confidence. And the confidence allowed me to start connecting with myself and my spirit and really dealing with the trauma that I had been through, which ultimately allowed me to stop being a victim of my circumstances and realize that everything in this life is a reality that we create. We create everything that's going on for us, and how we react and respond to all of that is within our power. And you can't change anything that's going on, but you can change how you perceive it. And so I started doing that, and I started changing my reality. I decided that I wanted to be happy, and I started listening. I started listening to my higher self. I started listening to God, Spirit, whatever it is for you, the source. And amazing, profound insights came through. Enough for me to be sitting on this stage, speaking on this panel at the age of 26. I'm like, I'm nothing special. We all have this. It's all something that we can channel into. But it started with just trusting and healing. And I thank you guys all so much for listening to me, and I love you all.
Thank you.
First of all, you are something special. Yeah. So, my name is Bruce Kellogg. I'm a Unity minister. I've been in Unity for 45 years. I've been an ordained minister for 20. It's been an interesting journey so far. And when I came in this morning into the sanctuary, I immediately was drawn to these symbols. This winged orb sun up here and the stained glass of love has everything to do with spiritual freedom. And I've done Sunday lessons on the winged soul. I call it the winged soul. And in my life as a minister, and prior to that as a social worker, working with hundreds of people over the years, everyone quests for spiritual freedom. And I've served 4 churches so far, one in Sacramento, one in Tennessee, one in Cottonwood, and just recently returning from Vancouver, British Columbia, where we had a church work up there, my wife and I, Jennifer, who's here. Jennifer used to be the administrator here in this church, and we have quite a long-standing affiliation with Unity Temple on the Plaza. I came in a couple weeks ago to talk with Duke and said, you know, Duke, I'm back here in Kansas City because we're looking to provide some support and care for Jennifer's parents, and is there any way that I can serve? And I'd just like to volunteer and meet with people and counsel and provide pastoral care. And I found myself in a whirlwind of grace. Reverend Duke is so generous and such a love of humanity, and he just said, well, let's get you on the website, let's make you some business cards, let's get you in and teach some classes, let's have you teach on or share a lesson on Sunday. I mean, isn't he really an embodiment of what it means to be an advocate for spiritual freedom? I would say so. So one thing along the lines of spiritual freedom that I would like to share, Charles Fillmore, in his teachings, the co-founder of the Unity movement, said that this work is about releasing the imprisoned splendor. Releasing the imprisoned splendor. And that has always stayed with me all these years. Since I was 16, I've been in Unity. And what does that mean? Well, that which is within us may feel imprisoned at times, but the releasing of this splendorous spirit is all about spiritual freedom. And in my work with people for many, many years now, there is a process that we all go through to allow this splendor to come forth. And it is one of giving permission, being willing, allowing, accepting our own inherent divinity. And I just want to share with you, and I too feel honored to be up here on this panel. I always cherish an opportunity to share from my heart to yours, because I have an inherent felt knowing that you and I are souls on an eternal journey, and that it is all about releasing the imprisoned splendor for us to be who we are. In truth, I'm an advocate for that. People on this panel are an advocate for that, that the chaplains are an advocate for that. We bless little Elizabeth here today in her life to be free, spiritually free. So, thank you. I look forward to being of service to people here at the temple. I look forward to being part of this work here, which is all about spiritual freedom. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Linda McClellan, and I received a phone call in the middle of the night. It was around 11:15, and I stated to my sweetie, I said, that's my mom and dad, and they've been deceased for many, many years. And I realized this morning that call came to me because I was going to share a little bit about my upbringing. For me, my family created my worldview of life. And we had teachings that was do as I say, not as I do. And as I progressed in life, intertwined with other people, different beliefs than what I had grew up with, I had this internal struggle with what was the right way, or what should I believe, and what should I take at heart. And from that, it caused a lot of obsessive behavior, which turned into addictive behavior. It became a time that I realized that I didn't understand for myself what it meant to have spiritual freedom. And what happened for me was to be liberated from that, I had to get to a point of being honest with myself. Even though I knew right from wrong, I knew that some of the teachings, some of the rituals and things that I had been taught did not go well with my internal being. And to think about the people that you care and love the most and would teach you certain things, to go against that causes this internal dialogue with yourself that sometimes you have to break loose and be liberated from it. And I felt that I was in bondage. There were certain things, and we don't have enough time to go through what those things were, but it was such internal bondage for me, which meant that I had to make some sacrifices. I had to be willing to take risks. I had to be willing to ask the question, what if what they say is true? That has stuck with me for many, many years. I spent a lot of time here at Unity at the AA Hall. AA and Al-Anon, and when I think about where I've come from and where that drove me to be able to be in a place of darkness, not knowing, you know, if I wanted to live, and having doctors say to my parents, you know, we're going to put on her death certificate suicide. Anyone that had as many drugs in her system as she did wanted to die. And I, on a regular basis, have to continue that journey of doing something to be liberated and to be true to myself. And to be authentic takes a lot of, I don't know if the word I want to use is courage, but it takes a lot of self going inward and just no matter how frightened or afraid one might feel, to step out and to believe in themselves. It's so liberating, and I'm just so grateful. I was on my morning walk when Duke saw me pass by here, and before I knew it, he asked me to speak, and I thought, I was too sweaty to hug him, but I was just like, as Whitney said, I said yes. But then I got to thinking, because sometimes being an ordained minister, there has been a lot of change for me to know what that meant when I chose to be an ordained minister, and to have some of those teachings that I had taken an oath to say, I don't believe that. I can't believe that. That takes a lot of insight. And the thought that I might lose a few enemies. I might lose a few people that think highly of me, or I might be liberated enough to feel that I might help somebody else, that they know that there might be certain things I don't believe in. So I'm just grateful that I get another day to be truthful to myself, and hopefully I can be truthful with others, and that maybe something that I have journeyed through will also be helpful for someone else. Thank you for allowing me to share.
In typical Duke fashion, he told me that this was on a completely different topic, so you people have been brilliant. But I'm supposed to philosophize on the ontological experience and whether it replicates oh, forget it, I'm not going. Anyway, spiritual freedom. Freedom from what? Well, perhaps tyranny. And as we leave our 4th of July week, we hear a lot of the tyranny and the oppression of the means of government that we tried to free ourselves from. And from Linda's story, perhaps being at unity and seeking spiritual freedom. And I know for myself it has been being freed of so much of what I was taught in my youth. It wasn't tyranny, but it was a way of thinking. It was a way of telling people how to think and how to believe and how to act. And I think unity and spiritual freedom is the exact opposite of that. It's each of us finding our own genuineness and our truth. And that can be challenging, and it can take time, or it can take nothing but an instant. It's our choice. But what it is a reboot. It's just almost like pushing our computer button, in that 95% of our activities are pretty much on autopilot. And so if we're living on autopilot in a less than spiritual way, what is it about rebooting that will lead us to a higher degree of our truth within and our higher genuineness and our highest self? This child that we christened living in the present is to which we intend and hope to return, where the future and the past can't even be conceived. It's interesting that we return to from whence we came. So, my cliff notes, ontological. Remember those 2015 Royals? Remember what they were for a few decades before that? And the mantra, the line they came up with, was keep the line moving. I trust you. I'll do my part. You do your part. And in that is a collective faith in performance that helped them perform at extraordinarily high levels. I find that's what we do for ourselves here. At least I enjoy hearing the stories of others and trying to learn of my own spiritual freedom from that came from others, handing the bat off, making their comments in small group meetings and at A Course in Miracles meetings, and saying in effect, so too can you achieve and move forward. It's exciting. And sometimes such mantras can be galvanized by physical activity. There was a coach of a basketball team, second tier group, Southern Utah, I believe was the team, and they were dead last in their division when the new coach came in. And he came in and said, we have to do something about it, and to do something about it, we have to start with these free shots, free throws, because the percentage was deplorable. And he asked each player to choose a mantra for themselves, a thought to place in their head, followed with a physical act. And it is in the physical act that we galvanize sometimes those thoughts. And so during practice, they would run hard and be called out, whistled over to go practice 10 free throws as though they were in game time and that they had the game on the line. Anyway, they went from last to first in an order of 2 years and the highest in the league on free throw percentage shooting. Creating a mantra, resetting, rebooting, and then following that with a physical act that galvanizes that thought. So I show up every Monday night, nearly, to A Course in Miracles, a wonderful book. It is but one path toward our spiritual freedom. And in that book are 365 workbook lessons. And they're stealthy, they're tricky, they're interesting ways of leading us to our own spiritual freedom, to release the binds that hold us back from that freedom. And on one of those passages the other day, I was stricken, and it's become my mantra recently, because it says, well, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? And so that's become my mantra, because in that possibility am I led to a new freedom. Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoy these panels because I get to learn something from other people's story. Everybody on this panel has come from a different place. They're on their own path. It's different for all of us. Yet the overarching theme here today, I believe, is to be able to free ourselves to just be who we are. Now, like Elizabeth Joy here, she's born into this world, and for most of us, as soon as we were old enough to comprehend what was going on, life started to mold us into something that it thought we should be. Mothers made us into something they thought we should be, whether they be kind or pleasant. Same thing with fathers. If you're an African American and you have the world treating you in a certain way where you believe that sometimes you're not equal, or that some people simply won't like you because of the color of your skin. If you're a widow or a widower, there's a certain way where you should handle that. If you're a child that has learning disabilities, there's a certain way that you should treat that child, or that child should be. And what happens is we get so confined, it's like layer after layer after layer of this conditioning that's put on us, where the soul, that spiritual freedom, that inner splendor that Bruce talked about, it gets buried, and we forget about it. And we just move through life with this heavy baggage, trying to find somebody who will accept us and give us enough time where they will research into who we really are and give us unconditional love. So for our panel, I say thank you very much, and come again.